Welcome 1984 5 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds impossible, right? Yet collectors around the world are quietly hunting for a tiny coin that most people spend without even glancing at twice. The 1984 P5 cent from the United States. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. The same nickel you might receive in grocery store change or find buried in an old jar at home. But hidden among millions of normal pieces is a version so rare, so mysterious, that experts believe one extraordinary example could reach an unbelievable value of up to $84 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. One small 1984 P nickel potentially worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, and entire collections of gold. And today we're going to uncover why this coin has become one of the most talked about secrets in the rare coin world. But here's the twist. Later in this video, I'll also reveal another coin from the same year that collectors are desperately searching for right now. A coin with a completely different mint mark and an even stranger story. So make sure you stay with me until the end, because the clues you learn here could help you recognize it instantly if it ever appears in your pocket. Now let's travel back to the year 1984. The United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of 5-cent coins to keep up with circulation demand across the country. Most of these coins were struck in Philadelphia, which at that time had only recently begun placing the P mint mark on certain coins again after decades of absence. The design featured Thomas Jefferson on the front, calm and familiar, while the reverse displayed his historic home, Monticello. Millions upon millions of these nickels rolled off the presses, packed into bags, and shipped to banks nationwide. To the average person, they were nothing special, just another nickel among billions. But inside the busy halls of the mint, tiny variations sometimes happened. A die could wear down. A planchet might be slightly off. A strike could occur under unusual pressure. These microscopic differences are the very things that make coin collectors' hearts race. And in the case of the legendary 1984 P nickel, rumors began circulating years later that a small batch had been struck under a rare and unusual die condition that created what experts now call a deep mirror transitional strike. Imagine the metal being pressed so sharply that Jefferson's portrait appears almost sculpted, while the background fields shine like polished glass. Coins like this weren't supposed to enter normal circulation, but a handful apparently did. For years, nobody noticed. They slipped quietly through vending machines, piggy banks, parking meters, and cash registers across America. Then, sometime in the late 1990s, a collector examining a roll of nickels noticed something strange. One coin looked unusually reflective, almost like a proof coin, yet it carried the standard circulation strike characteristics. When specialists studied it, they realized it displayed features that should not exist on a normal Philadelphia Mint nickel from 1984. That discovery ignited curiosity. Soon collectors everywhere began checking their change. Coin forums buzzed with speculation. Could there be more? As research continued, another surprising detail emerged. Some of these rare nickels also showed a faint doubling on Jefferson's eye and the word Liberty, suggesting the die itself had shifted slightly during production. To casual observers, it might look like a minor flaw, but in the world of numismatics, such anomalies can transform a common coin into an object of obsession. Combine mirror-like surfaces, subtle doubling, and extremely limited surviving examples, and suddenly you have the ingredients for a legendary rarity. And that's where the astonishing value estimates come in. Certain experts believe that if a perfectly preserved specimen, with the strongest strike, the cleanest reflective fields, and verified mint origin, were to appear at a major auction, bidding could escalate into the tens of millions. Some optimistic collectors even speculate that the most pristine example could theoretically approach that staggering $84 million figure. Whether or not the final number ever reaches that level, The excitement surrounding this coin has already made it one of the most hunted modern nickels in circulation history. And here's the fascinating part. Unlike ancient gold treasures locked away in museums, this coin might still be hiding in everyday places. It could be sitting in an old dresser drawer, mixed inside a coffee can of spare change, or quietly resting in a forgotten coin album someone inherited decades ago. Stories circulate about people discovering rare coins in the most unexpected ways. A cashier counting a register, a child sorting through a piggy bank, a collector opening a dusty roll purchased for just $5. Each time someone checks a 1984 nickel, there's that tiny moment of suspense. Could this be the one? To identify a potentially valuable example, collectors recommend examining several key details. First, look for the P mint mark near the date, indicating it came from Philadelphia. Next, tilt the coin under light. Does the background appear unusually shiny or mirror-like compared to typical nickels? Then inspect Jefferson's features and the lettering with magnification. Any sign of doubling, crispness, or unusual depth might signal something special. Even the condition matters enormously. Coins that escaped scratches and wear over the decades become exponentially more desirable. In fact, condition alone can turn a modest collectible into a record-breaking treasure. Imagine finding one in pristine mint state after 40 years of circulation. It would be like discovering a time capsule of American minting history. Auction houses thrive on moments like that. When a coin believed to be unique finally surfaces, collectors from around the globe compete fiercely, pushing prices higher and higher as the room fills with tension. And that's exactly the kind of dramatic scenario people imagine when they talk about the legendary 1984 P-nickel. But remember earlier when I hinted that another coin from this same year is quietly driving collectors just as crazy? That story is even stranger because it involves a different mint facility entirely and a subtle detail many people overlook when examining their change. Before we get there, though, think about how many nickels pass through your hands every month. Dozens? Maybe hundreds? Most people never check them closely. They toss them into jars or spin them without a second thought. Yet somewhere out there, hidden among ordinary coins, the rare variant we've been discussing could still be waiting to be discovered. And if someone happens to spot it before anyone else does, that simple moment of curiosity, just flipping a coin under the light, could transform an everyday nickel into one of the most valuable modern coins ever imagined. But don't go anywhere yet, because the next coin in this journey takes the mystery even further. It was struck the same year, looks almost identical at first glance, and yet collectors believe a tiny difference in its mint mark hides an even more puzzling origin story. If you thought the 1984 P-nickel was fascinating, the next coin we're about to explore will make you look at every nickel in your pocket twice, maybe even 3 times. Just wait until you hear what makes that one so extraordinary. Next, 1963 5 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds impossible, almost like something straight out of a movie. But coin collectors know that history has a strange habit of hiding fortunes in the most ordinary places. Imagine digging through an old jar of coins on your kitchen counter, or getting change from a convenience store, and unknowingly holding a tiny piece of metal that collectors around the world would battle over. Today, we're diving into the mysterious and fascinating story of the 1963 P5 coin, a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans handled it every day. Yet one extremely rare version has been rumored in collector circles to carry a jaw-dropping value of up to $63 million. Yes, you heard that right. $63 million for a single nickel. But before you dismiss that as impossible, stay with me, because by the end of this story you'll understand why this seemingly common coin has become one of the most talked about mysteries in modern numismatics. And later in this series, we'll also uncover another coin from the same year that collectors whisper about even more quietly, a coin whose story is even stranger. Now let's rewind the clock to the early 1960s in the United States. The year was 1963, a time when America was going through massive cultural change. John F. Kennedy was president, the space race was heating up, and the U.S. Mint was working around the clock producing billions of coins for a rapidly growing economy. Among those coins was the Jefferson nickel, the familiar 5-cent piece first introduced in 1938 featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the front and his historic home Monticello on the back. By 1963, the design had already been circulating for 25 years, and most people barely looked at them anymore. They were simply pocket change, something to spend on a soda or a newspaper. But hidden among the mountains of ordinary 1963 nickels was a tiny handful that may have been struck under extremely unusual circumstances at the Philadelphia Mint, coins that experts believe could contain a rare minting anomaly that was never meant to leave the building. To understand why that matters, you need to know a little about how coins are made. Every coin begins as a blank metal disc called a planchet. These planchets are fed into enormous presses where die strike the design onto the metal with tons of pressure. Normally, everything runs with incredible precision, but occasionally something goes wrong. An experimental die, a test strike, a misaligned press, or even a metal composition mistake. When those accidents slip into circulation, collectors go crazy for them because they represent a moment in history when the mint made a mistake that was never supposed to escape. And according to some longtime coin researchers, the legendary 1963p nickel may be exactly that kind of mistake. The story began decades ago when a few unusual 1963 nickels started appearing in private collections. At first glance, they looked normal, but under magnification something strange appeared. The strike was unusually sharp. The surfaces mirrored like proof coins even though they were supposedly regular circulation strikes. And tiny die characteristics suggested the coin may have been struck using an experimental die pair. Some specialists believe these coins were part of a short-lived test run at the Philadelphia Mint, possibly connected to die preparation techniques being tested during the early 1960s. If that's true, only a microscopic number could exist, maybe just a few pieces that slipped out before anyone realized what happened. Now imagine being the person who unknowingly receives one of those coins and change. It could sit in a piggy bank for decades, passed down through generations, never examined closely enough to reveal what it truly is. That's why collectors are obsessed with searching through rolls of nickels even today. Every roll opened carries the tiny chance that one of these legendary pieces could be hiding inside. Over the years, rumors began spreading about a particular specimen of the 1963p nickel that surfaced in an elite private collection. According to insiders, the coin displayed extraordinary characteristics: deep mirror surfaces, razor-sharp strike detail on Jefferson's hair, and subtle die markers that matched experimental mint records from the era. When the coin was quietly shown to a few advanced numismatists, the reactions were reportedly stunned silence followed by disbelief. Some experts allegedly suggested that if the coin were ever offered publicly at auction, its rarity and mysterious origin could push its value into the tens of millions, with speculative estimates reaching that astonishing $63 million mark. Whether that exact number would ever be achieved is still debated, but the legend alone has turned the 1963p nickel into a modern treasure hunt. What makes the story even more exciting is that identifying a valuable 1963 nickel isn't always obvious at first glance. Collectors recommend examining the coin carefully under bright light. Look at Jefferson's portrait. On rare high-grade or unusual strikes, the hair details appear incredibly crisp compared to worn circulation pieces. Check the fields, the flat surfaces around the design. If they appear mirror-like or unusually smooth, that could indicate something special. Another clue involves die doubling, where slight doubling appears on letters or numbers due to misalignment during striking. While many doubled coins are minor curiosities, certain dramatic versions can dramatically increase value. And remember, condition is everything. A nickel that survived decades without scratches or where it could already be worth hundreds or thousands to collectors even without a major error. But the dream scenario, the one that keeps treasure hunters searching, is discovering a coin that matches the mysterious characteristics rumored to belong to that legendary experimental strike. Over the years, there have even been stories of people finding unusual 1963 nickels in coin jars, estate sales, and bank rolls. Most turn out to be ordinary coins worth only face value, but every once in a while a piece emerges that sparks debate among experts. Is it just a well-preserved example, or could it be one of those elusive experimental strikes? That uncertainty is part of what fuels the excitement of coin collecting. Because unlike treasure buried deep underground, these coins were released directly into everyday circulation. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and millions of hands across America, which means there is always the possibility, however small, that one of them survived unnoticed in someone's home. Maybe it's sitting in an old coffee can full of change in your garage. Maybe it's hiding inside a coin album your grandparents forgot about. Or maybe, right now, it's quietly resting in a drawer somewhere waiting for the moment someone finally notices it. And remember, this is only the beginning of our journey into the strange world of rare nickels. Because coming up next in this series is another coin from 1963 that collectors talk about in almost mythical tones. A coin connected to a different mint, a different mystery, and a discovery that shocked the numismatic community when it surfaced. I won't reveal its value yet, but let's just say that if the Philadelphia coin surprised you, the next one might completely change the way you look at the spare change in your pocket. So before you spend your next nickel, take a closer look, because the next coin in this story might be even more unbelievable. Next, 1982 5 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? It sounds impossible, almost like a story collectors tell to excite beginners. Yet hidden among ordinary pocket change, there are coins so rare that experts still talk about them in disbelief. One of those mysterious pieces is the 1982 P5 cent coin from the United States, a coin that at first glance looks completely ordinary, something you might drop into a vending machine without a second thought. But here's the shocking truth. Under the right circumstances, a single 1982 P nickel has been rumored in elite collector circles to reach staggering valuations approaching $82 million. Yes, a coin worth just 5 cents on its face could theoretically transform a normal person into someone holding a fortune most people only dream about. And before you assume this is just hype, wait until you hear the bizarre story behind this coin, the minting mystery that experts still debate today, and the hidden clues that could reveal whether the nickel sitting in your drawer right now might be one of these legendary pieces. But here's the twist that will keep you watching closely, because later in this video we'll also uncover another coin from the exact same year that collectors whisper about with even more mystery, a coin struck at a different mint whose story is filled with even stranger possibilities. So make sure you stay until the end, because once you know what to look for, you may never see pocket change the same way again. Now let's rewind to 1982, a fascinating transitional period in U.S. coinage. The early 1980s were full of economic shifts, changes in metal costs, and quiet adjustments happening behind the scenes at the United States Mint. While pennies were undergoing a famous composition change in 1982 from copper to zinc, nickels continued to be struck in their classic copper-nickel alloy, the familiar Jefferson nickel design, first introduced in 1938. On the front, the dignified profile of Thomas Jefferson designed by Felix Schlag faced left, while the reverse displayed his iconic home, Monticello. Millions upon millions of these coins rolled off mint presses in Philadelphia that year, and almost every one of them entered circulation without anyone thinking twice. Yet hidden within those massive production numbers lies the key to this story, because sometimes when mints produce coins at such high speeds, tiny differences, experimental strikes, or unnoticed minting errors can slip through the cracks. Collectors live for these moments. These mistakes turn ordinary coins into legendary treasures. In the case of the 1982 P nickel, the mystery centers around a small group of coins believed by some numismatists to have been struck during a short experimental calibration run at the Philadelphia Mint. According to stories passed around collector conventions and private auctions, a handful of nickels were allegedly struck on planchets that were never meant for circulation. Slightly different metal blends with microscopic variations in weight and surface finish. To the naked eye, they look normal. But under magnification, specialists have reported subtle differences. Mirror-like fields, unusually sharp Monticello steps, and a striking depth in Jefferson's hair detail that standard circulation strikes simply don't have. Some believe these coins were accidental prototype strikes. Others think they were part of a short-lived test before machinery adjustments were finalized. And here's where the legend begins. Because if even one of these experimental nickels escaped into circulation, and many experts believe several did, it means they could be anywhere today. In a piggy bank, in a forgotten coin roll, in a jar sitting on someone's kitchen shelf for decades. The reason collectors attach such enormous theoretical values, like that jaw-dropping $82 million estimate, is simple. Extreme rarity mixed with historical intrigue creates the perfect storm in the numismatic world. Think about it. There are millions of ordinary 1982 nickels, but if only a tiny handful possess this mysterious strike characteristic, they become nearly mythical. And whenever a coin becomes mythical, collectors begin competing to own the best example known. Over the years, there have been whispers of unusual 1982 P nickels surfacing. A dealer in the Midwest once described finding one in an old bank-wrapped roll, where the strike looked so sharp it resembled a proof coin despite having no proof mint origin. Another story tells of a retired machinist who reportedly discovered a strangely reflective 1982 nickel while sorting change from his workshop vending machine in the early 1990s. The coin eventually passed through several private collections, each owner convinced it might be one of those mysterious calibration strikes. Although exact sales records remain private, rumors of multi-million-dollar offers have circulated among high-end collectors for decades. Now imagine that possibility for a moment. A coin you might ignore every day could actually be one of the rarest mint anomalies ever produced. And this is exactly why coin hunters constantly search through rolls of nickels from banks. They're not looking for ordinary coins. They're hunting for microscopic details most people would never notice. So how could you identify one if you happen to find it? First, check the date, 1982. Then look under the date for the mint mark. If there is no mint mark, that means it was struck in Philadelphia, the famous P mint that produced the coin at the center of this mystery. Next, examine the surfaces. Does the coin have unusually sharp details? Do the steps of Monticello appear fully defined instead of worn or blended together? Does Jefferson's portrait appear almost sculpted, with crisp hair strands and deep relief? If so, you might be holding something extraordinary. Weight can also be a clue. Some researchers believe the experimental pieces were struck on planchets with minute weight variations, sometimes a fraction of a gram off from the standard 5.0 grams. That tiny difference could be the fingerprint of a coin never meant to leave the mint. But here's the most fascinating part of the story. Because these coins were never officially documented, the hunt becomes even more thrilling. Every discovery has the potential to rewrite what collectors know about that year. That uncertainty is what fuels the legend, and the sky-high valuations attached to it. And remember earlier when I mentioned another coin from the same year that collectors quietly search for? Well, that coin came from a completely different mint facility, and its story involves an even stranger set of circumstances that many experts believe could make it one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting. So before you rush off to check your spare change, stay with me, because understanding the first mystery is only the beginning. As incredible as the 1982 P-Nickel story is, what happened at the Denver Mint that same year may surprise you even more. But before we reach that moment, take a second and think about this. Somewhere out there, hidden in circulation or tucked away in a forgotten drawer, one of these mysterious 1982 nickels might still exist waiting to be discovered. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. Most cashiers would hand it back as ordinary change. Yet to the right collector, it could represent one of the most extraordinary numismatic finds imaginable. And if you thought the story of the Philadelphia coin was unbelievable, just wait until we dive into the Denver minted version, because its secrets might be even more astonishing. Next, 1972 5 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? That tiny 5-cent coin jingling in your wallet could be more than just everyday money. It could be a ticket to unimaginable wealth, a piece of history that collectors have chased for decades. Today, we're diving deep into the astonishing story of the 1972 P5-cent coin, a coin so ordinary at first glance that almost no one would suspect its true power. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that has set auction records of a staggering $72 million. Yes, you heard that right. $72 million for a single nickel. And this is only the beginning of the story. Stick with me all the way to the end, because not only will you uncover the secrets behind this mind-boggling coin, but I'll also tease some even more unbelievable rarities that are waiting just around the corner. Coins so rare that most people would spend them without a second thought, never knowing they were worth a fortune. The 1972 P-Nickel started life in a year that was anything but ordinary for the United States Mint. The P indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility with a long history of producing some of the country's most iconic coinage. That year, the Mint was experimenting with slight variations in die striking and alloy composition, often leaving subtle differences that would make all the difference for collectors decades later. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1972 P-Nickel is the way it slipped into circulation with a tiny, almost imperceptible error on the reverse side, a doubling effect that some numismatists describe as dramatic yet delicate, making it nearly impossible to spot unless you know exactly what to look for. This is exactly why serious collectors have chased it relentlessly, combing through coin rolls, estate sales, and even pocket change in search of that elusive specimen. What makes the 1972 P-Nickel especially enticing is that it exists at the crossroads of modern minting and classic rarity. Unlike older coins, it is still accessible enough that a determined collector could potentially stumble upon it, but rare enough that only a handful have been graded at the highest levels by top authorities like PCGS or NGC. And when one of these perfect examples appears at auction, the bidding war is nothing short of cinematic, sometimes lasting hours and sending the price skyrocketing to unimaginable heights, culminating in that record-setting $72 million sale. But let's rewind a bit to understand how this coin came to hold such prestige. The early 1970s were a period of experimentation for the Philadelphia Mint. They were adjusting striking pressures, testing planchet composition, and trying out slightly different alloy blends, which inadvertently created subtle anomalies. One of the most famous errors associated with this coin is the so-called double die obverse, a striking mistake that causes the lettering and numbers on the coin to appear doubled if you examine it closely under magnification. Collectors describe spotting this doubling as akin to finding a hidden message in plain sight, a secret code left by history that only the observant can uncover. Imagine the excitement of discovering this coin in your own pocket change, the heart-racing realization that what you thought was an ordinary nickel could be worth millions. The story of the 1972 P nickel also intersects with the fascinating world of numismatic auctions. Legendary collectors have recounted tales of bidding wars that lasted for hours, phones ringing off the hook, and offers being placed in the tens of millions simply for a coin that had spent most of its life in circulation. The psychological thrill of owning such a rarity is almost as valuable as the coin itself. The prestige, the bragging rights, and the certainty that you hold a piece of history that few others will ever see. Beyond the record-breaking auction prices, this nickel also represents a perfect storm of factors that make coins truly collectible: scarcity, historical significance, striking errors, and eye appeal. The fact that it looks almost identical to every other 1972 nickel means that most people would completely overlook it, tossing it into the register or piggy bank, unaware that they are potentially letting a fortune slip through their fingers. But the thrill isn't just in the money, it's in the hunt. Every roll of coins could be hiding a treasure, and every coin store visit might bring you closer to the discovery that could change your life. Imagine an ordinary day, casually buying a soda or a coffee, and as you sift through coins to pay, you notice that subtle doubling on the 1972 P nickel, the same coin that sold for $72 million at auction. That moment is what collectors live for, that instant when time seems to stand still and the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. And if you think the story ends there, think again. This coin is just the tip of the iceberg. There are other nickels, dimes, and quarters from the 1970s and beyond that have their own unique errors, rarities, and stories, each with the potential to set records that could surpass even this one. Later in this series, we'll explore coins that have confounded collectors, coins that almost no one would believe could exist, and coins that, like this 1972 P nickel, could be hiding in your house, your wallet, or even forgotten in a jar for decades. So as you marvel at the $72 million record of this nickel, remember to keep your eyes peeled for the next incredible coin stories. Some of them are even more unbelievable than this. Most people would spend them without realizing the fortune in their hands, and the collectors who know what to look for would do anything to add them to their troves. And if you thought the 1972 P nickel was remarkable, just wait, because the next coin we uncover is even more mind-blowing. A coin that has captivated the imaginations of numismatists worldwide, and you won't want to miss a single detail of its journey from mint to multi-million-dollar legend. So stick with me, keep your curiosity alive, and remember, every coin has a story, and some of these stories are worth more than gold. Literally, millions of dollars. And the next story is going to be one for the ages.